Hey everyone, this is Phil, and this video will be about color neutrality on the ZZ method. To give you guys first a little background information, color neutrality is pretty well developed now. Usually people do it with CFOP. That means you can start the cross on any color, so green, orange, yellow, whatever you want. And what that does is it gives you an opportunity to inspect all the crosses if you have to, and choose the best one. Maybe for you that's the most finger tricky or the shortest move count or whatever makes you comfortable. So you get the best choice, and that gives you a jump on the solve, and it lets you get into the F2L much quicker. Sometimes if your cross solution is short, you can actually see the first pair, and that sometimes doesn't happen when you have a really long cross. So that's the benefit of color neutrality. It gives you a better beginning. Of course, once you solve the cross, the advantage is gone aside from the increased look ahead into the beginning of the solve. Then you just do your pairs and your OLL, PLL, and it's pretty much the same. So with ZZ, I feel full color neutrality is a little impractical because there's just so much thinking involved in the beginning step. So instead, I chose to do Y-Axis Color Neutrality, which means I changed the front face of my solve. You know how ZZ starts with one face and it makes all the edges oriented, so you don't have to do any other turns or cube rotations. So you pretty much stick with the face you start on. I usually start on blue, but I've recently learned to start on red. And of course, the EO rules for blue and green are the same, and the EO rules for red and orange are the same. So once you learn red, you can be comfortable with orange. And of course, if you know blue already, green is not very hard. So the whole idea is to give myself an easier EO line. And of course, that first involves making the wrong edges correct. And sometimes when you change the front, it changes the definitions of edge orientation, and sometimes it can result in fewer wrong edges, and of course that's more convenient usually. And so as an example, I'll just show you how rotating will change your definitions. So for example, what I did was just I took out this pair, and we're going to focus on two edges. The first one is this one, and so this one is red and blue, and normally if you approach it from a blue front perspective, you'd say this is correct because you can solve it with R, U prime, R prime, just like what I did, but backwards. And of course, if you switch to red front, this piece becomes impossible to solve into this position without the use of some quarter turn on the front face. So this becomes wrong. So as you can see, one simple rotation actually changes the orientation of this piece. Of course, when you change from blue to red here, it's making things worse because you're adding a wrong edge. In other scenarios, it'll make the edge better, and it'll make it right, and so you don't have to consider it in your calculus when you do the EO line. And if that works out for you and you see that during the solve, you can quickly change front faces to suit your needs. The next edge we're going to look at is this one here, and this edge is immune to changes. And you'll see this when you play around with changing your front face. This can be solved in its correct position because it's solved already, and of course when you switch it's the same way. Even if it was here, for instance, it would still just only require a U prime turn to solve, so no matter where you hold it, the front face, it's always going to be correct. So some edges are immune, some edges become vulnerable, and they change depending on what front you use. So usually when you're color neutral, you want to pick the orientation with the fewest wrong edges. Of course, that's a general rule and there can be exceptions, but you just pick whichever is easy for you, and you'll have a much better time because some EO lines can be really nasty, and if you have an extra option, you won't feel so pressured to plan out a really hard EO line. So how this is going to work is I'm just going to show you some example solves. They will show you my thought process in how to decide whether or not blue or red is better, and it'll also show you how much easier it can be when you switch to a new front. So let's take a look at some examples. Alright, so I'm going to do 5 example solves, and I'll have these scrambles in the description. Okay, so I'm going to be doing blue front. I noticed 6 wrong edges, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this EO line is acceptable, so I'm not going to go on red and figure that one out because I want adequate time to plan out my blue EO line. And so here is my plan. So I noticed that these two pieces are already in place for a front slash back quarter turn in case this is a front. So I'm going to do some form of front quarter turn. This piece is very close to be solved into here. So my next short-term goal would be to put a wrong piece in this position. And I can do that by fixing these three edges and purposely making this one wrong, swinging it around and putting this one here and doing an F. Notice I did not do an F prime because that would lock this piece incorrectly with this, which I find really annoying, so I'm going to keep it up. And I noticed this piece is on the wrong side, so I'm going to actually include it in. And I notice these form, so I'm going to go for an X cross like this, and I see the next pair. You can do that. And I have a pair here. And this, I think this should PLL skip. Yeah, okay. All right, so this one is really bad. So I'm going to go to red front. And what's really cool is that there are only 4 wrong edges. If you use red front, you have 1, 2, and 3 and 4. Just to let you know why this is so bad is because these two pieces are like awkwardly placed in relation to each other, and it's really annoying to do a 3 into 1 into 3. I guess you can do like an F prime and then a D2, and you'd have to move too many pieces around, and it just takes too many moves, and then it becomes hard to anticipate where the line edges will end up, and it's just a huge mess. So I'm going to put these two pieces in here like this, and swing this blue piece towards the blue center because that's what you're supposed to do. And now I have the EO line correctly made, and I see these two pieces, they're pretty visible, so I'm going to connect them, and it goes with this. And I'm going to solve this pair in the back, and over here I see this pair already, so I'm going to go into it. And I know that these two pieces will be connected, so I can go into that as well. And I can do OLL here and PLL. Yeah, the reason I didn't do COLL there was because I don't like that COLL case for two-handed, and I didn't learn one for two-handed because I'm lazy. Anyway, this is also really bad for blue front. I'll kind of explain why. It's because there are too many wrong edges on the bottom, the down face, and it's just a pain. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So I'm going to go with red front, and I noticed that there are only 2 wrong edges, these two, so I'm actually going to hold it like this, orient these two, and then bring it back like this, and I have a pair here going in with this pair, and I'm going to solve this pair here, and this one here, and then the last pair here, like that, and then I have, this is an 8 perm. Alright, scramble 4. It looked like a V perm for like a second, and then figured out it was an 8 perm. So there are 4 wrong edges in blue, and 4 wrong edges is usually very manageable. I have 2 over here, 1 over here, and 1 over here. So I'm going to put this one here, and then sneak this one over here. And I noticed that this piece is here in relation to this, so I'm going to do an F prime so I can adjust these to their respective cross pieces and then correct the EO line. And I noticed these two pieces, I'm going to solve them. And over here, I'm going to solve these two. Oops. And I know that this piece is sitting over here, and if I solve the cross piece, it'll be over here. So I'm going to move this out of the way, solve it, and then stack it, and it creates this pair. That was a really bad COLL, but the F2L wasn't too bad. All right, so this one is just got 8 wrong edges for blue. So 8 is, it's pushing it. So I'm gonna look at red and see what it's got. And red has 6, so I'm actually going to do red. Um, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They all happen to be pieces with up-down colors. So all my rotation did was cancel out 2 edges that would normally be wrong and make them right. So I'm going to move this one over here, creating 3, making it wrong, and then I'm going to group everything to the front face and then solve my EO line. And over here I have a block done, but I noticed that if I do this, I'll shut in this piece so I can correct it and finish it. And over here I have a pair, and I'm going to rotate and solve this pair. And this one is going to give me an EPLL. So that was actually a really good solve. It had a pre-made block, and then if you nudge the U face over, you get a free pair. So that's pretty cool. And that just shows how useful red front can be if you can figure out a solution quickly enough. I just can't imagine doing a blue solution on the previous scramble. It's just a nightmare. And that probably was, is what made some of my time so bad in competition when when you pick up the cube and you realize that there's like nothing good for you to do. It's a big lifesaver to have a backup plan. So if you use EZ and you don't use an alternate front, highly suggest it. Of course, you know, you have to be able to detect wrong edges well. If you don't, then you're just going to be very upset and annoyed because you'll have to do it twice sometimes in a solve. But if you're comfortable detecting right-wrong edges, I highly suggest at least trying it out to see how you feel. If you like it, then definitely I would add another front to your bag of tricks so you can have an easier time when you practice or you compete or something, and it just feels like a very big relief when you pull off a solve that was originally really bad, but it turns really good. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them anytime. See you on the next video.